Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the Winchesters. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're continuing the search for Sam, but there seems to be no headway on that front. And obviously for Mary, it's like, it doesn't make sense for her why her dad is making it so hard to track him down. Because she talks about the last time they talked was like an argument that they had where she talked about quitting hunting. I mean, it's all she's ever known. She wants to kind of like not make this her entire life. I mean, once again, there ain't really much retiring from hunting necessarily. It's like, it's always like, once you're kind of aware of that world, it's always going to have some grip or some hold over you. So there's not any really quitting it. And the only retirement plan, typically speaking, it has happened, but typically speaking, the only retirement plan is death. So, so obviously not wanting that just to be every aspect of your life, wanting something more understandable. But obviously for Sam, it just, probably for him, it just feels like a spit in the face to some extent. But then you also have to get to the territory of, now lots of suggesting like, well, maybe your dad is trying to show you, give you the quote unquote silent treatment because he's trying to prove to you that, hey, when it's all said and done, he can do this alone just in case you do decide, hey, I want to quit this line of work. So, and I think all of that is kind of why, even more so why Mary is so desperate to find her dad. We also find out about her mom's circumstances. Apparently her mom went on a job with some other hunters, but she hasn't been in contact with her mom for like a couple months. She's like, I don't even know if mom knows that dad's missing. Now, I'm curious if that correlates with our rocking Roxy. As we kind of find out, jumping ahead a little bit, we find out that she's the one that the Creeder are kind of working for. Either she's Queen Bee, a Creeder, or she's something powerful that the Creeder are like bowing down to. I'm assuming she's Queen Bee, a Creeder, just in a human disguise or whatever. Like whether she's like going full blown demon possessing a body, which I remember the creature I was thinking of. I brought it up in that first episode. I was like, oh, this isn't the lady this isn't connected to the lady that the Men of Letters had to sealed up, that Dean had to get the mark of Cain and that blade of Cain's to kill her. But it's like, no, I don't, but I remembered her name off the top of my head. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the demon I'm thinking, or her name is Avalon, if I remember correctly. It just randomly clicked in my head. Like I said, I think she was like the season 9 main antagonist. Either way, tangents and all that aside, I just wanted to include that because I remembered it off the top of my head. It just randomly came to me when I was thinking about it earlier. But I do not believe they're the same. I'm fairly certain those aren't the same people. Because also, like, the Avalon was like specifically a Men of Letters issue. I don't think the Hunters were involved with that whole ordeal. I could be mistaken. Either way, my point is, part of me wonders if Roxy is actually Mary's mom. Just because she brought up her mom this episode, hadn't heard from her mom in months, and just what I've done, it's conspicuous that the 2 times we heard Rockin' Roxy is 2 scenes when Mary's not there. So that's what makes me go like, it feels like that might be like, just the fact is they introduce her as like the main antagonist and Mary's mom's going missing at the same time. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe that's the kind of point to make you think that. But I mean, that's what I'm at least leaning into now, that Roxy's probably most likely her mom, just being possessed by whatever this is. Maybe, maybe not. But anyway, getting into the episode, this episode revolves around the monster, was it Bori Baba? Basically Father Sack. Basically it presents you with what you're missing and and it usually, if it's something that you hold dear, it ends up, bringing it to you, and then it drags you into its world, to its maze, and it plays with you before it eats you. And now this also continues that story from previously where it's like, okay, cool. Now we've run into another super unique monster, and the timing's interesting because it's all like relatively in the same area. This one hitting even closer to home because this is actually hitting close to Mary's neighbors, because like she looks after the kids Ford and Carrie from time to time. So it is a situation where this case ended up being obviously very personal, but also, like I said, it hit close to home. And so it is that continued thing of like, right, either like the monsters have to be killed by human hands or something like that, or the head honcho just feels like it's easier to hunt these, like, because it almost feels like they're turning Lawrence, Kansas into like Beacon Hills from Teen Wolf. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Beacon Hills from Teen Wolf, I'm specifically referencing the show that was on MTV. The movie's coming out on Paramount Plus and all that. Regardless, in that, Beacon Hills got its name because it's a literal beacon to the supernatural. That's why like so many of the supernatural are drawn to that specific town because of that, right? So I'm wondering if that's what this is about. It's like, right, that's why they're getting closer and closer to home, because like they're trying to make Lawrence a supernatural beacon, because maybe whatever it is that this person is trying to do, at the heart of it, Lawrence is at the middle of it. And so now, I mean, it might be on like some supernatural ley line, or magical ley lines, or supernatural ley lines that make it the ideal spot. Or maybe it's not like just specifically a ley line. Maybe it's like a very specific thing is buried deep underground of like Lawrence in particular, that I can only assume like that's kind of what we're getting at, because they assumed last episode is like, oh, like Sam's the one that like gave us our monster last episode. It's like, no, I think it's the queen bee of the Akrita that knows you guys well enough to know, like, oh, to take advantage of this situation. It's like, right, might as well get hunters to do it. Now, either that's because she's like, I'm too lazy to do it, I don't feel like doing it, I don't have to do all the running around, but like it feels specifically like she needs humans to kill these creatures, because then she comes in, like, sucks their souls up, or like I said, maybe it's just purely too much of a hassle. I just curious why go about, because it seems like you're gathering like specifically the souls of these the essences of these very specific and rare monsters. Like I brought up, I think I brought up previously, like it might be a similar thing to like Lucifer's cage. Once again, break 66 of 666 seals to like loosen the bars enough for Lucifer to get out, essentially. So it might be something in a similar vein. But first and foremost, Carrie is taken, and that's like such a like sweet scene between her and her mom, Big Mama Rig, and she's like Twinkle Star. I thought that was such a cute scene between them at the beginning, and then like having her like get snatched by essentially the boogeyman, as because a lot of times, it's a story that's kind of passed down from generation to generation in her culture, and it's like she said like it kind of gave her nightmares and stuff like that, and even saying like it's the equivalency of the boogeyman for where she's from. Kind of reminds me, it legitimately gave me like Don't Look Under the Bed vibes. Meets with a little bit of Halloween Town. Great classic Disney movies if you've never seen them. But it definitely gave me like Don't Look Under the Bed vibes, in particular, because that dealt with boogie, well, not just boogeyman, boogie persons, so that's what really solidified it even more for me. Definitely kind of also has like a little bit of because of the rugs, like the sack aesthetic and stuff like that, can't help but get a little bit of a Scarecrow vibe from it as well. I mean, once again, obviously some, even more so with some versions of that character than others, which obviously is interesting too, considering this is like, well, this is partially under the WB umbrella, so I did think that, well, one are discovering now umbrella. Either way, once again, Carrie got kidnapped first, and Ford wants to help find his sister, but it's like, no, we got to tell you what's what about the well, yeah, there's like, we're kind of part of this club that like hunts. It's like, oh, so your monster club is like, yeah, and he wants to be a part of it. And you're like, obviously, like it's like, oh, he wants to make jackets for us. It's kind of like the joke later on, like at the end of the episode, like, oh, he's so like all about this and stuff. But it's like, Mary would have her reservations about it because she was been ingrained in this since she was a kid. She would never want to draw another kid. She wants people to be old enough to make those decisions, because at least like, hey, like John's old enough, he's going through what he's going through, and obviously this is kind of he's kind of naturally part of this world because of his dad, so being a part of the Man of Letters, so it is that situation of his circumstances are a little different, plus he's old enough to make that decision of his own. Mary didn't have much of a choice in that, and she would never want to take that choice away from someone else. I mean, she would never want to draw these kids intentionally into this world. It's like, right, signing up for it, because you want it to, it's very different, especially once again when you're old enough to kind of make that decision for yourself. Sadly, Mary, like, once Ford ends up getting kidnapped, she decides to kind of sacrifice herself and is like, right, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna make sure the kid's okay, you stay out here with Lotta to make sure we find a way to kill this thing, because she hasn't been able to find enough information about this thing. So, part of me does, I mean, it's kind of that Winchesters, like, situation. It's like, right, that family is notorious for, like, diving into the deep end, you know? Not always having a plan, but it's like, right, we got to help people, got to do as much of good as we can. I mean, especially in this case where kids are involved. Once again, it's even more so close to home for Mary, but still. And it is interesting, the item that it gets represented, like the item that drew her in was her father's hat, which obviously definitely, especially when she put it on, very like Indiana Jones of her. I think that's kind of the aesthetic they're going for with her dad, Samuel, anyway. I also found out who they cast as Samuel too. Like, cause I remember this person, without spoiling it, you know, to anyone that doesn't know, just so it's kind of like oh snap, if it happens. If you don't know, don't say, if you do know, don't say anything. I don't want to take the chance anyone comes across this who doesn't know. But I was like, I think I recently found it, cause I knew a certain actor was like, this actor, I was like, oh, they're going to be a part of this prequel. I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. And then I think I fairly recently found out they were cast as Samuel. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, oh, that's pretty, which I'm like, oh, that's super dope. Getting them a part of this universe. That's actually pretty cool. Either way, I would kind of leave it at that. Until the person actually pops up in the show playing said character, Samuel. Either way, putting that aside, Lotta did say there was someone she could call to try and help with this situation, because John is desperate. He's like, we got, obviously, like, they all care about Mary, but obviously she's so important to him, because for him it's like hunting, he spent so long looking for his dad, and this whole world kind of potentially gives him answers to a lot of what he was missing, and it means a lot to him, but it only means a lot because he has Mary by his side. Like, because even Lotta like try to set it up earlier, like, oh, maybe you should go see a movie, and kind of nudged John to try and take her to like a movie or whatever, but like Mary's kind of completely oblivious, and so she kind of missed that, which I'm like, yeah, of course it's not going to be a straight shot love story. Like, there's going to be a couple bumps in a row, just because, I mean, that's how romances work. It's never always like a clear, like, oh man, everything's there, we know it's meant to be because it does happen, type of situation, like a Superman and, well, a Clark Kent and Lois Lane, or, type of situation, which I always feel like is so disrespectful, because it's like, yeah, there's been other relationships, but that's the like golden standard. Like, I feel like with some of the superhero relationships, it's kind of like, yeah, Superman and then Lois, like, or, Clark Kent and Lois, like, that's always just meant to be no matter what, that's the staple, like, relationship in Clark's life, like, probably the longest relationship, at least I'm aware of. Either way, tangents and all that. So my point was just like, right, Mary and John not necessarily getting together immediately. It's like, well, that kind of fits, but it's almost like, yeah, we know what the end result is. We're going to get there some way or another. But along with all of that, Lotta ended up contacting someone, which it's the way she was like, just don't, like, she was like, yeah, just tell mom I'm fine or whatever, that's all. So I would assume she was talking to a sibling, because Mary at the very least is under the impression her parents are dead. She was like, oh yeah, Lotta's parents died a few years ago. Maybe that's not fully the case. Either it's a situation of Lotta lied about that just because it's easier, because it seems like there might be some bad blood with her family. Like, she might be considered an outsider, because she's like, yeah, whoever I call probably won't even want to talk to me. She was probably going to talk to her mom, but like maybe like a brother or sister answered, or it could just be like an aunt or uncle answered, and it's like, right, just tell mom I'm okay, or something like that. So either maybe her dad's died but her mom's alive and they have a very complicated relationship, or maybe both parents are alive and it's just a very complicated relationship, and maybe they didn't like some choices she made, or she did something she didn't line up with them, or maybe their values or something. I mean, maybe her like being a part of this hunting world is something they've been super against. So it's like, right, her Mary's dad wants her to be a part of this world. Maybe Lotta's parents don't. And John's kind of like trapped in between, where it's like, yeah, his dad was part of the Men of Letters, and his dad is trying to like lead him here, but it's also like, I don't want it to all be that you are. Like, he has his mom to kind of balance it out too. So it's just interesting dynamics all around. At the very least, I feel like that's the case, because at the end of the episode, she's looking at the phone and she's probably almost drawn to like, should I call? And it's like, well, also that person didn't bother. Most likely it's like, my mom probably heard and didn't bother trying to call me or contact me, so I know where I stand, and I think that probably frustrates her a lot. But either way, the only way to get circling back to like the main thread of the episode, the only way to get away from Father Sack is to you have to basically destroy the thing that he gave to you that means so much to you. Obviously, Carrie did it without hesitation. It's like, I'm sorry, and just rips like her bunny up because it's like, I'm getting out of here. This is scary. And also the thing that brought Ford here was like, no, I know my sister's okay. I don't need this anymore. So he breaks it. But Mary couldn't destroy the hat because I figured, at first I was like, oh, because like, right, your dad and everything, that's what it symbolized. But it symbolizes more so her own fears because she doesn't know what she's going to do with her life. Like when she does quit, like, yeah, she wants to quit hunting, but it's like once she finds her dad and has that conversation, it's like, what am I going to do afterwards? Because I've trained, like hunting's been a part of my life forever. And she's like, I've never dreamed about anything else like you, John. You've had opportunities to dream about being something else. But me, this is all I've known. This is all I've ever learned about. So like going outside of that's scary. And he's like, it's okay, but you don't have to figure it out all at once. All you have to do is kind of take those first steps. And she was finally able to burn her dad's hat. So, and then all I had to do was bring Father. I want to say Sackman. I think I'm thinking of like Sackboy from the Little Big Planet games. Well, and also he eventually got his own standalone game just called Sackboy. Either way, oh yeah, because I'm also thinking of like the DC character. Isn't his name Sackman? What was his name? Was it? I don't remember because he's in Arrow. He's like a very like what I think people refer to him as like a D list character. Either way, tangents and all that. Either way, slice it ahead, it's dead. Carrie came in with the finishing blow, stomped it, saying stupid monster. So they're willing to keep this quiet because also it's like, right, even if they told anyone their kids, people wouldn't believe them anyway. So it's like, but, you know, they think it's something special between them and Mary. It's like, oh, cool, we're part of this secret group that knows about monsters really existing. So, them being reunited with their mom at the end was really nice. And obviously the story they're going with is like, yeah, she went looking for a toy, got lost. That's all that is to it. Especially because that's interesting because obviously the story ties into Betty. We finally meet the Betty that, because his mom referenced her last episode. Now we meet her. So it turns out she's not only just an ex-girlfriend, which it seems like that was kind of implied. She's an ex-fiance. Because I guess before he shipped out for the army, he proposed to her, or maybe it was beforehand, maybe it was one of the decisions why she was like, right, I can't do it, like, because they were supposed to talk after he got back, but he was kind of avoiding her, I guess, because it's just that awkward conversation about like, right, you kind of turned me down, and he admits like, right, you were right, we were super young at the time. But obviously he has so much he has to deal with. I mean, for one, he likes Mary, so there's that, but also he's got to figure out all this stuff with his dad and being a part of this hunting world and keeping Betty out of it. Can't let the cops know what you're up to, because it's really hard to explain, like, yeah, there's actually this monster. It's like, yeah, I mean, eventually you'll get some probably cop allies. I think eventually. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not Betty ends up becoming like a recurring character, kind of like, God, I am blanking on the character's name because she was recently in Kung Fu, but Kim Rhodes, her character in Supernatural, she kind of became an ally, a cop that they could turn to from time to time, you know? So I'm curious if it's something going to be like, will it be something of that ilk, or will this like be one down? Well, especially if all this is going to be hitting so close to home, they're going to run into Betty from time to time, and so they're probably going to find themselves on the other side of the law when they have to be like, yeah, it was something supernatural. It's like, what? Are you, like, how do you tell her the truth? She probably won't believe you. I mean, and sadly, we've seen on the law enforcement side of things in the supernatural world, those who have been their allies on the more like, I mean, it's not even just that front. Like, we've seen people they've saved or allies they've come to know over the course of things, whether they're police or just people who found themselves mixed up in the supernatural world. Those stories don't always end well either, just like a hunter. So that's going to be the complicated thing. If they ever do bring her in, that it could always put her life at risk. But she did give back the engagement ring that he proposed with, so. And at the very least, they are friends. And it's like, good on him being, good on them in general, being able to handle that. It's like, right, we care about each other and we want to be friends, so. Plus, they've had time away from each other, so I think I think it's still a little bit of a sore wound, at least maybe on John's front, and I think on Betty's front too. But I think they are to kind of work past that, because it's like, right, we should probably sit down and talk. And it's just like, right, it just wasn't the right time. Even John was like, yeah, I was kind of moving too fast. Like, I think maybe him shipping off and stuff like that made him expedite things so quickly and propose, and it's like, whoa, we're kind of jumping the gun here type of thing. But who knows where things kind of go on that front. Like I said, whether or not they bring her into the fold, I could definitely see that being a possibility, but who knows. There's also Mary going on that guy she met at the movies. I was like, well, we didn't hear his name, and I was like, you don't think that's going to be Bobby or something, right? Because I'm like, they've got to throw him into a young version of Bobby at some point in the show. But I'm like, when? Because the guy, we didn't get his name, and I was like, is that going to be Bobby? Like, immediately that went through my mind. It's like, that got to be Bobby. Bobby. Is it Bobby? Is it Bobby? Damn it, Bobby. But it's a good chance it might not be. Once again, it's just kind of that little hiccup in their story of like, no. Of course, like, they've dated other people, and that's something John's got to deal with, because it's like, cool, working with her and she potentially liking someone else, and you like her and she's kind of oblivious to it, because it's like, right, he likes you just because but also you brought him into this world. Also, I'm curious to look into the ages of the other actors. I did not realize Meg Donnelly, the actress who plays Mary, is so young. She's only, at least what I saw, I looked on Wikipedia and saw, she's only 22. I wasn't expecting her to be that young. Like, I expected, like, maybe mid-20s or something like that. But to be fair, I'm like, well, I guess it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Like, obviously the Riverdale cast was on the fairly younger side. I mean, they're older than their characters, but, now they're, like, the ages of their characters. But at the time when that show started, like, some of them were, like, anywhere between like 19 to like 22. They were all like in that range at the time, so I'm like, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. I'm wondering the rest of the actors around that same age, obviously, with some exceptions, but I was like, oh, that's so interesting. It just took me by surprise. I expected her to be like at least a little bit older than what she is. They're not supposed to be that old anyway, because they're only supposed to be like, Mary's probably like 18, just like John potentially is, so 18, 19-ish, so they're probably like late teens, early 20s, so it's very befitting of their characters' ages, so they're probably themselves around that. Either way, we also had the other side of the episode where Carlos and Ada are tracking down the demon that was working with the one that possessed Ada, but he gets to jump on them, but luckily got a demon trap in the back of the van, so. And Ada, you could tell, like, it wasn't like let's tell Mary and the others. It's like, no, let's take him somewhere to talk first. And, like, the fact that she was acting so calm working on her bonsai tree, because she's, like kind of slow and steady wins the race type of thing. But it turns out, no, this is also for a spell to trap a demon inside of something as small as a bonsai tree. I was like, is that new? I'm like, I guess it's, like, a very tough spell to beat. Like, unless you're, like, on your way to, like, if you're just a full-blown witch, maybe you can make that happen. But haven't there been instances, maybe I'm getting it wrong, but haven't there been instances of just witches just straight up killing demons? So would you even need to, like, I don't know. I don't know if that's something that ever came up in the original show or not. It's been 15 seasons, a lot could happen, so I'm like, I don't know if that ever really came up. It never came up later, obviously, when you're able to just kill a demon at that point in time, and you just kill the demon. You don't take time out trying to, like, go through the trouble of, like, trying to trap it in a specific object, because apparently the one inside of Ada was able to kind of like go inside of her, like, her memories and stuff. So this demon's mocking her, being like, oh, we know your stupid, pathetic dream of wanting to be a witch. And it's like, so she's kind of like, and probably in their eyes, it's like, oh, you're a wannabe witch slash but it's like, right, they got the information about the Krita's leader being the one that's, in some woman's body and stuff like that. They are not on good terms with, basically they sided with the Akrita, because they were like, right, whatever's coming, we're kind of AWOL from hell, so we're like made a deal with the Akrita so we can like save ourselves. It's like, because like everyone's getting it, demons, humans alike, because even all the other supernatural creatures, the whole point is to wipe everything and everyone out and like take this world as their own. So trying to self-preserve yourself is like, that wouldn't have worked out well for me, because it's like, no way they would have kept up their end of the bargain. Does beg the question, are there any other demons out there who also made similar deals? We don't know. But Ada obviously trapped the demon in the bonsai tree because wasn't like, right, she used the excuse of, yeah, if we let him go back to hell, he'll warn the others about us, which is very true. But also, like, she wanted to, like, punish this demon in particular. It's like she can't do anything to the one that possessed her because it's already, like, in the box dead. So it's like she can't do nothing about it. But this one then also took the time to mock her, so later on Carlos sees her kind of like pulling away at the bonsai tree because she was so calm in the beginning. But I think that encounter with that demon, like, it's the closest she could get to, like, revenge because she was violated, she was possessed, and it's like these bastards are just laughing at me, and she just like, oh, not feel this, like, you're trapped in this thing, you can't do anything, and trees can live a very, very long time, so she's enjoying it. But Carlos can tell, like, how much in pain she is, that she feel that's the only way she could kind of take back a little bit of her power is by making them feel as powerless as she did, so it's going to be interesting to see where things kind of take us going forward on that front, on all fronts, as we go as we head into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.